Fire and Ice by Robert Frost. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. From what I have tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice. Hello, once again I welcome you to my YouTube channel. My dear students, a critical study of poem is always appreciated. Poem is the finest piece of art of writing. You should not be satisfied with only surface meaning of lines of poems. Try to understand what message actually the poem is trying to convey to you. Why is it so important? Because poetry doesn't use simple language. It uses figurative language. It plays on the senses and emotions of its readers. Its words carry more weight than that of words used in any other forms of writing. See the whole video and you will certainly enjoy seeing how a simple looking poem has a wide and deeper meaning. One more thing, I'd like to request you to please subscribe to my YouTube channel and don't forget to like this video. I shall be discussing this poem under the following headings. First of all, introduction to this poem will be taken up. Second, meaning of each and every line will be given. Third, Frost's symbolism will be discussed. And the last one, discussion of questions based on this poem will be taken up. Let us come to the poem. First of all, I would like to ask you a question. How the world could end? Would the world or the human civilization burn or freeze? Every one of us wants to know the answer to this question. Many intellectuals as well as common people have tried to predict the ways the world would end. Predictions of apocalyptic events that would result in the extinction of humanity, a collapse of civilization, have been made since the beginning of the human civilization. Robert Frost has also tried to answer the age-old question of how the world would end. He presents two options. According to him, the world would end in fire or in ice. He thinks that either option would achieve its purpose sufficiently well. Make it clearer. The poet presented two possible causes which will destroy the whole world: fire and ice. The poet uses these natural elements as symbols. Actually, here fire symbolizes desire and ice symbolizes hatred. So, desire and hatred have power to destroy the whole civilization if these two emotions are left uncontrolled. Now let us try to understand the stanza-wise meaning of this poem. Fire and Ice is a short poem by Robert Frost. First two lines establish the poem's conversational tone. Some in the beginning stands for people. Hence, here the people's opinion on the probable end of this world has been presented. The poet refers to two predictions of how the world could end. Some people say it will end in fire, whereas others say it will end in ice. The poet also then expresses his views. The poet thinks that fire, that is greed and anger, is stronger than ice. So the poet holds that the fire would be the most devastating force in the destruction of the human civilization. So he agrees with those who think that the world will suffer from greed and anger. In the very first stanza, we see that the poet clarifies that he is actually talking fire as the symbols. It is evident in the first stanza that by fire he means uncontrolled desire. Actually, in the beginning of the poem, the readers think that the poet is talking about natural disaster. The poet has never talked about natural disaster in the poem. He never says that fire means any natural wildfire. In the same way, he never suggested the ice stands for any future ice age. The people presume that the poet talks about fire which may stand for a certain wildfire, and ice could relate to a future ice age. But it's not like that. In the third line itself, the poem changes direction and makes it clear that fire and ice are symbols. So the poet is not talking about natural disaster. He talks of humanity's ability to create disaster of its own. In other words, he says that the world would end by the humans' unchecked desire or their limitless hate with each other. According to the poet, fire stands for desire, greed, or lust. The more you try to satisfy them, the more they grow. There is no end to it. They spread like fire, and soon one becomes puppet in the hand of desire. One becomes selfish and cruel. Before the critical discussion of the second stanza, I would like you to know the meaning of difficult words from this stanza. First, perish, that means die. Another word is suffice, that means sufficient. One more word for sufficient is enough. We have seen that in the first stanza, the poet says that desire would play the most prominent role in the destruction of the world. But in the very first line of the second stanza, the poet makes it clear that the world is meant to be destroyed for 2 times. Then ice, that is hatred, is no less stronger than fire. The poet clarifies that ice works differently from fire. Fire kills violently, whereas ice kills silently. But ice has sufficient force to destroy the whole world. Here ice stands for hatred, coldness, and rigidity. In this case, one becomes insensitive and indifferent towards the feelings of others. The poet says that both fire and ice are growing with such a rapid speed that the world soon end either way, in fire or ice. Unchecked desire or uncontrolled hatred could destroy the whole human civilization easily. I hope you have understood the meanings of these 2 stanzas clearly. At this point, let me have the opportunity to discuss symbolism, because without knowing symbolism, it would be difficult to understand Frost's poetry. Use of symbols is one of the strongest aspects of Frost's poetry. It is the key to his poetry. Symbols bring out beauty of poems. Frost uses symbols in poem to convey his message. You may ask, what is symbolism? Symbolic meanings are different from their literal meanings. Symbolism is the use of an object, person, situation, or word to represent something else that is different from their literal meaning in literature. Let us see some examples of symbolism.
If you see the use of color black, you must understand that it is used to represent something bad such as death or evil. If there is white, it is used to represent something good and pure. Red stands for passion, blood, or danger. Green represents hope and maturity. In this way, many other words are also there in English literature which are used as symbols. I hope now you would have understood the uses of symbols in poetry. Robert Frost uses symbols and send his messages to his reader beautifully. Some of the examples are as follows. In his poem Road Not Taken, he uses road which symbolizes different paths we must take in life. In the same poem, he uses woods which symbolizes the external factors in our lives. If you have read his poem Dust of Snow, you will find the use of crow which symbolizes death and sadness. And in the same poem, hemlock tree has been used which symbolizes harbinger of bad luck. Likewise, in this poem, that is Fire and Ice, fire symbolizes desire, anger, and ice symbolizes hatred and coldness. Let us come to see the technical aspects of fire and ice. The poem is written in two stanzas. Both stanzas have two different predictions on how the world would end. The first stanza tells us that the world would get destroyed violently in fire. Fire here stands for desire, which leads to anger and greed. The second stanza tells us that the world would get destroyed silently in ice. Ice here stands for hatred, coldness, indifference to others. The following literary devices have been used in this poem. Let us see one by one. Rhyme scheme. Rhyme scheme is the pattern of rhyme that comes at the end of each verse or line in poetry. In other words, it is the structure of end words of a verse or line that a poet needs to create when writing a poem. Rhyme scheme of the first stanza is A, B, A. It is always written in small English alphabet letters. The second stanza has B, C, B, C, B rhyming scheme. Let us come to the next literary device, that is alliteration. The occurrence of the same letter or sound at the beginning of adjacent or closely connected words is called alliteration. In this poem, the example is, you can see this line, some say the world will end in fire. Here first, sa sound has been repeated, and the next consonant sound, that is wa sound has been repeated in world and will. Next, assonance is there. Assonance is actually the repetition of the same or similar vowel sounds within words, phrases, or sentences. Example is, I hold with those who favor fire. Here, O sound in hold and another O sound in those. This O sound has been repeated, so this is called assonance. Another use of technical literary device is imagery. Imagery actually is language used by poets, novelists, and other writers to create images in the mind of the reader. If you read this line, some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. A certain type of image occur in our mind that the world is burning in fire or the world is in complete ice. So here the poet creates a picture in the mind of people about the end of the world.
Let us discuss some questions based on this chapter. You can pause the video to write down the answers in your notebook. So the first question is, What are the four poetic devices used in Fire and Ice in stanza 1? Give example. The answer is the poetic devices used in the first stanza are as follows. Rhyme scheme A B A A. Second one, alliteration. Example, some say the world will end in fire. Here "wo" has been repeated in world and will. The third one is assonance. Example, I hold with those who favor fire. Here in hold O sound has been repeated in those word. The fourth one is imagery. Example, some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. Here the poet creates a picture in the mind of the people about the end of the world. Come to the second question. How are fire and ice similar to each other though they have contradictory traits? The answer is fire and ice are similar as they both are enemies of humankind. They are equally capable of bringing an end to the world. The third question is, what would be the cause of destruction of the world? Answer is, the cause of the destruction of the world would be desire, anger, and hatred among the human beings. They can kill each other in the influence of anger and hatred. Now come to the fourth question. For Frost, what do fire and ice stand for? It's a very important question. The answer is, for Robert Frost, fire symbolizes anger and desire, whereas ice represents hatred and prejudice. Fifth question is, write down the two different views about the end of the world. Answer, one view that is pictured by poet about the end of the world is by desire and anger inside the human beings. The strong feeling of desire can force human beings to destroy their world. Another view of the apocalypse is the destruction by hate. One would not hesitate to take a life if he is filled with hate and prejudice. Question number 6. How does Robert Frost caution the common man? Answer is, Robert Frost cautioned the common man by giving a signal that he should let go of his desire and hate. This will end the world. If he wishes to move forward, he must learn to love and tolerate. Seventh question. Why does the poet hold with those who favor fire? The answer is, the poet thinks that fire, that is greed and anger, is stronger than ice. People are greedier than they are cynical. So he thinks that the world will suffer from greed and anger. Next question. But if it had to perish twice, this is the line from the poem. But if it had to perish twice, how will the world perish twice? The answer is, if the world will perish twice, it will perish from ice the second time. The world will end because of the hatred and prejudice among the human beings. Next question. Which age-old question does the poem revolve about? Answer is, the poem revolves about the question, how will the world end up in apocalypse? Robert Frost expresses his views about this question through this poem. Now, 10th question is, how has Frost brought out the contrasting ideas in the poem? Very important question. The answer is, desire forces us in hot pursuit of something, hence it is compared with fire. Hatred makes us insensitive towards others' feelings. The coldness of ice can numb our senses. Similarly, the coldness of our hearts can numb our kindness. That is why hatred has been compared with ice. Next question. Why does the poet hold with those who favor fire? The answer is the poet takes side with those who believe that the world will be destroyed by fire. Frost connects fire with desire. According to the poet, desire is powerful and would be a quick end. Moreover, the fact that he has had personal experience with desire leads him to first conclude that the world will end in fire. Now, next question is briefly write about the ideas about how the world will end. Answer. The world will end as a direct result of either fire or ice. Some scientists believed that the world would be incinerated from its fiery core, while others were convinced that the coming ice age would destroy all living things on the Earth's surface. Frost introduces a more emotional side, associating desire with fire and hatred with ice. The poem, thus, does not allow for any other opinions in the black and white debate between fire and ice. Question number 13. To say that for destruction, ice is also great for the poet, what does ice stand for? How is it sufficient to bring destruction? Answer is ice symbolizes hatred. Hate is just as powerful as desire. While desire consumes quickly, hate can occur and linger in people's minds and hearts for years and sometimes even lifetimes. Hate consumes the hater perhaps even more than the person or group hated, and it can ruin lives. Hate can thus be very destructive and sufficient to bring destruction. Now, let us move to another type of questions. These questions are based on the lines extracted from this poem. Such type of questions are frequently asked in your examination. Here also you can pause the video to write the answers in your notebook. So the first question, which is based on the extract from this poem, see the lines. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. From what I have tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. These are the lines. The questions are based on these four lines. Question number 1. What is the poet's opinion of the world in these lines? The answer is, in the poet's opinion, the world will end in fire. Question number 2. What is the poet's opinion about the world? Answer is, according to the poet, the world will end in fire. Next question. What is the contradictory opinion of public? The contradictory opinion of public is the debate whether the world will end in fire or ice. Next question. How are ice and fire similar to each other, though they have contradictory traits? Both ice and fire are similar in the sense that both of them would destroy everything in the world. Next extract. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice. There are 4 questions. The first one is, what does it refers to in the first line? It refers to the world. This is the answer. Second question, what do you mean by perish? Answer is, perish means to die or to be destroyed. Third question, What does ice stand for? So the answer will be, as you know, ice stands for coldness. Next question, what would be the cause of destruction? Ice or fire would be the cause of destruction. With this, I end this video. I once again request you to subscribe this channel for my latest videos. Thank you.